Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Dill, the Iron Bowl preview is going to feel a little bit different than what we expected it to feel like 24 hours ago. Alabama going down in a wild upset to what I think is not a very good Oklahoma team. And then the Auburn Tigers maybe playing their most complete game of the season, taking down Texas A&M. Dill, I'll say this, that win felt like it could be a turning point for Hugh Freeze during his time at Auburn. We've loved what Hugh Freeze has done off the field in terms of talent acquisition. The results haven't quite matched that. This has been a good football team, a better football team than what their record says, but they haven't really been making those plays to win the game. That felt like that was a game that maybe kind of turns it around for this Auburn program under Hugh Freeze. Fired up to get into some matchups. Now, before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys, Auburn fans, Alabama fans. Let it fly in the comment section. We all know the bad blood in this rivalry. That's what makes college football so great. So whether you disagree with the boys, agree with the boys, whether you're battling out with the opposing fan base, let it fly. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Dill, without further ado, we got to start with this Alabama offense. That there have been points in the season where this Alabama offense looks like it might be the best offense in the country. And then there have been other times where it just can't get anything going. Saturday night in Norman, Oklahoma was one of those times. What can Alabama do to get back to the juggernaut Alabama offense that we've seen at times in 2024?
I think it fundamentally always starts with their offensive line's ability to not give up penetration. Because you look at the teams who have challenged them, South Carolina, obviously Oklahoma yesterday, those type of teams that have athletic, active defensive lines that get upfield and make Jalen Miller essentially play his game a little bit more horizontal than attacking the line of scrimmage. That seems to be a real problem from him, because last night in that South Carolina game, you just see him playing indecisive. In his confidence, it just feels like kind of zaps away. And Oklahoma was playing a heavy box on him all night, and they just couldn't get anything going downfield. Now, I know the one that got called back, obviously, not a good call, but still, for the most part, they really struggled to get anything going from him. And I think it started with Oklahoma just kind of rattling him by making him not play his game on his own terms.
Yeah, it felt like Oklahoma tried to smother him a little bit, gave him some heavy boxes, really sent some pressure. And Dill, I think you made a really good point in terms of the teams that have challenged Alabama on defense, Scar, Tennessee, and obviously Oklahoma, all really good front sevens that are active front sevens that like to get upfield. That kind of coincides with Alabama struggling to run the football. I mean, we had 30 carries for 70 yards against Oklahoma. That's a massive story. And Alabama never really challenged Oklahoma all that often down the field. And I think one of the things you got to do a better job of it. Sometimes we just overcomplicate the sport. You got a generationally talented wide receiver in Ryan Williams. Him catching 2 footballs is just not good enough. You got to figure out a way to let your playmakers have an impact on this football game. Now, Dill, you look at this Auburn defense. This, again, sneaky good team with a sneaky, very good defense, only allowing 4.7 yards per play. That's 19th best in the country. Now, some good and bad things against Texas A&M, but in general, like this Auburn defense, especially with some of the young talent in the back end starting to play, has been really good. Obviously, I think the biggest storyline is how you deal with Jalen Milroe. How can you put him in spots that make him uncomfortable, aka keeping him in the pocket, make him a pocket passer? Dill, you got a guy in DeMarcus Riddick that if you want to go to a quarterback spy, run and chase linebacker look, DeMarcus Riddick, I think, can be that guy as a true freshman. I wonder, I'm kind of just interested in terms of how does Auburn decide to deal with Jalen Milroe, the athlete. I thought they did a brilliant job dealing with Marcel Reed. Marcel Reed played a pretty damn good football game from the pocket, but they didn't let Marcel Reed extend too many plays. Can Auburn, kind of replicate that on the road against Alabama? Probably the biggest storyline you have on the defensive side of the football.
Yeah, I think Auburn's ability to deal with just the athletic talent that SEC teams, top-end SEC teams, let's say, can throw at them is just you've seen that kind of increase as they've been able to get their young guys on, because frankly, those are the type of guys that they need to be playing in the future. Like their talent cupboard, let's say, was pretty empty when Hugh Freeze took over. But again, you're starting to see those young guys keep up. My one concern for Auburn's defense is I don't think their defensive line yet has the type of guys they
Ooh,
need in terms of
so
guys who can penetrate and get upfield. Like, again, they have some like Jason Jones, Blockton's playing pretty good football in fairness, but like, I don't love their ability to maybe be as disruptive, let's say, from that defensive tackle spot as Oklahoma. And that felt like a big problem for Alabama.
agreed. And Auburn has some reinforcements coming in that 2025 class. And I think that was a position that Hugh Freeze tried to address in the transfer portal and did a decent job at doing. But you're right.
You
On
just
the
don't get
inside,
the hammers in the
but
portal.
but look, yeah, I 100% agree. Look, I actually thought they played pretty dang good against Texas A&M in terms of penetration, in terms of creating some negative plays. But
Well, their
what
defensive ends can do it,
I
like
was
guys
gonna
like
say,
Jalen McLeod, Keldrick Falk. But I do think you want some of that right into his face. Again, I think that's one of the like. I feel like you can read away defensive ends a little bit in the Jalen
yeah,
Miller operation when your defensive tackles like Jaden Jackson for Oklahoma was a serious problem. I don't know that Auburn
yeah.
quite has those guys to really make it hard on them.
So one of the matchups I'm looking for, though, and you talk about an underrated aspect of this Auburn team, those edge rushers, Jalen McLeod's speed against Elijah Pritchett, who just is stuck in the mud sometimes at that right tackle spot. I mean, Jalen McLeod, he a little bit undersized, maybe lacks some of the power in his hands, but what he lacks in that, like that twitch off the edge, is some next level stuff. The ability to attack the outside shoulder. We've seen Elijah Pritchett at times just let edge defenders run right by him. I think that could be a really interesting matchup. Then on the other side, you talk about one of the best defensive linemen in the SEC. It's Keldrick Falk. Like, again, there are some players that are not getting enough attention because this Auburn team hasn't really won as many games as we expected. Keldrick Falk's a difference maker too. So maybe the difference makers that they lack on the inside can produce on the edge. That's something you're looking at. And Dill, Auburn did a really good job outside of that one ball to Noah Thomas. They didn't really give up many explosive plays. That was kind of the story in this game. In Alabama, that's kind of how they want their offense to operate, whether it's through the air, whether it's running the football. There wasn't a carry that Texas A&M had that went for over 20 yards. And outside of that one play to Noah Thomas, Texas A&M couldn't
Now,
find really explosive
A&M
plays.
doesn't have Ryan Williams, and Ryan Williams, I think, can be a real problem for younger corners
Yeah,
because he is a nightmare down the field in terms of his ability to play the ball. So you need your corners to have like real sound fundamentals dealing with him. And you saw it with Georgia. You've seen it, him be able to pick on when he gets his one-on-one opportunities down the field. And he frankly did it against Oklahoma. It was just, again, bad call, obviously. He's a guy who I think can challenge these Auburn young corners who, again, are playing awesome. Like, I think
yeah.
Jake Crawford's playing so good. I think Payne Lee is going to be a star at some point in his career. But Ryan Williams is such a nightmare to deal with when he gets his opportunities. That has what's, again, made Alabama at times to be really dangerous is they have that kind of kill switch on the outside of
Yeah,
this.
but the challenge is for Alabama. You got to get them involved. Like, they didn't get them involved in Norman. Switching sides here. This Auburn offense. Okay, so my frustration with the Alabama defense. I think this is a very talented unit that has consistently not played up to their potential. I could not believe it was Oklahoma was a one-dimensional offense. Like, they did not want to drop back and pass. I believe Jackson Arnold attempted 11 throws all game, and Alabama just wasn't bringing a safety into the box. Like, they were a 5-6 man box from the whole time. It's like anybody with a brain can see Oklahoma wants to run the football. And Alabama just didn't really respond to that and kind of continued to allow Oklahoma to chunk them on the ground. That was wild by Kane Womack. And I'm not blaming the Alabama defense because on aggregate, they were pretty damn good. But I was surprised in terms of how okay they were light boxing Oklahoma. Now, you look at this Auburn offense still, this is the craziest stat in all of college football. Auburn's offense is averaging 6 yards per play. It's a top 30 number in the country. On a down-to-down basis, this Auburn team's been really good. They're only averaging 24 points per game. That's 81st. Like, red zone, turnovers, it's been a problem for Auburn, but they consistently can move the football. Again, the story for Auburn heading into this game, you're going on the road. Can you, one, don't make the plays that lose you football games, a.k.a. Peyton Thorne. And I think more importantly, when you get the opportunity to go score 7 points, you got to make sure you're doing it. Auburn did a really good job attacking the deeper third, right? Cam Coleman, Keandre Lambert-Smith. Peyton Thorne was 5 of 8 throwing the football 20-plus yards down the field. We've seen Alabama at times struggle to giving up the deeper third. Can Auburn take advantage of that? Probably the number one storyline for me in this matchup.
Yeah, and that'll always be like, again, you've seen some good moments from Kane Womack's defense too in their terms of their ability to take the football away. Obviously, that's been a huge problem for Peyton Thorne. To me, one of the fundamental issues you want to talk about where Alabama just doesn't feel the same as they've been in the past. that defensive line. I mean, I know they've
Yeah.
had some injuries and some attrition, but they just don't make a ton of plays. I mean, they didn't create negative, a lot of, I think, had like 4 TFLs against that
Yeah.
Oklahoma team, a team that has one of the worst offensive lines, I think, in the whole conference. So, again, we can talk about Kane Womack's scheme and him not getting enough guys in the box. Like, at some level, your defensive linemen need to be able to get off blocks and make some plays. And I just don't think that's been consistent enough. You've seen how like difficult it was to deal with Nick Saban defenses because they had unbelievable defensive linemen. I don't think Alabama quite yet has that rotation with all the
Yeah,
injuries.
they haven't quite been able to replace like that Dallas Turner or that Will Anderson. I would agree with that. And if you're Auburn, you're going back to the Oklahoma film. Oklahoma did a lot of pre-snap stuff with the run scheme that gave those these Alabama linebackers are legit. There's no question about that. John Campbell's playing like one of the best backers in the country, but with all that stuff that Oklahoma was throwing at him, you're kind of like, for lack of a better term, slowing down the linebackers. There's a lot for them to diagnose. Can you kind of replicate that in your run scheme? If you give Jarquez Hunter some opportunities to hit big plays, he's going to do it. There ain't many running backs running the football better than Jarquez in 2024. Dill, let's get into the pick, and I'll start. Auburn getting 15 points. Give me Auburn. Like this to me, like, does Alabama get off the mat? I think it's obviously out of your control in terms of college football playoff implications at this point. They just looked defeated in that second half of that Oklahoma game. Can they come back home and rally the troops against an Auburn team that, again, to me, my personal take is that was a program-changing win for Hugh Freeze and Auburn. So give me Auburn and cover the 15. I think this game's going to be awfully close, and I think Auburn has the chance to pull it out. We've seen the Iron Bowl get wacky time and time again.
Yeah, no, I kind of like Auburn, frankly, to cover that number too, because they're basically you're basically saying Auburn's something on the nature of like a Kentucky or something.
No.
I think Auburn's a better team. They're clearly more talented. My issue is Auburn going to respond the right way? Because we've obviously, even in this own season, seen them not exactly respond the right way, have a really nice game against Kentucky, and then go lay a dud against Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
And that's been a bit of the Hugh Freeze season, let's say.
Yes.
Like, you've seen some highs, and then you come back and you don't really follow it up particularly nicely. Again, I think Auburn has the talent to keep this game close. I do think Alabama's going to win this football game, but I'll pick Auburn to cover it because Alabama's still – again, they're frustrating because like you've seen such highs from them. Like they've been.
You can't watch that Alabama game from that Oklahoma game and like feel comfortable taking them to cover 2 touchdowns right now. You just can't.
But then you flick it on a week before against
Yeah.
LSU, and it's like, oh, this is like one of the best teams in the country.
That is very true. It's just like Jekyll and Hyde situation. We'll see how this one turns out. We've seen the Iron Bowl game, and I just got a principle. I got a principle. Like I don't take 2 touchdown spreads in the Iron Bowl.
We've seen some bad Auburn teams play Alabama.
Yeah, and vice versa. Like it's just how it goes. We'll take Auburn. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later.